If you want to follow along, you could go ahead and download the tutorial file for this, but I'm interested in just reviewing how to make buttons. And so there's a buttons layer that has nothing on it, and I just want to look over the buttons layer really quick to see if there's anything on the layer, and there's not. And what's happening is I want to create a button that says baseball, and then when I click on baseball, the baseball will show, and then it will hide again. If I click on a button for football, the football, soccer ball, and basketball, and yes, they're a little bit out of order, but the idea is still there. So if I want to create a button, I'm going to make sure I'm on this first frame. I have my playhead here, and I'm going to go to Insert, New Symbol, and I'm going to call this base as an abbreviation for baseball, and I'm going to call it button. Now, when I'm making a button, I'm going to have a background to the button. So I'm making like a little box. And then I want another layer for the text. And then as you do this stuff, you start to form your own little abbreviations, and it doesn't matter what they are because the only person it matters to is you. So background would be BG for me, TXTs anytime I have text. And I want it to say baseball. I want it to be black. And I need it to be a little bit smaller. To fit in this button. And down in the timeline now, you don't see, the timeline looks different than it does when you're animating because it has button properties. So it doesn't have 5 frames, 10 frames. It has over, down, and hit. We're not going to use hit, but under the word over, I have 2 separate layers. So I'm going to highlight both of those frames and insert a keyframe. It's a quick way to put keyframes on both of those layers. You don't have to do the one on, and then one there. So you can highlight them both and insert a keyframe. I'm going to undo a little bit. So what I'm interested in is changing the color of something, and it doesn't matter what I'm changing the color of. I'm just going to change the background color of this button to anything else. You can change the word, you can change anything. I'm going to do the same thing under the word down. So down, I'm going to highlight those 2 frames and add a keyframe, and then change the color of the background. So I'm done with my button, and my whole sports equipment scene is gone because I was able to just have space to create the button, but now I'm done. So I want to go back to my scene. So this little arrow right up here at the top will allow me to go back to my scene. And I'm going to put it on frame 1. It's in my library, so it just kind of saved it for me. I called it base a minute ago, so I'm going to drag this on the screen. It's huge, so I'm going to go ahead and resize this button. And then I'm going to start adding all the button to make the button work. So if I click on that button, there's an instance name. So I'm going to add base. And now I need to add code. So I'm going to click on frame 1, go to my actions panel, grab my code from the description, paste it in there, and I got to change some things. I want this to be base, 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 as we've practiced in other places. So I do need to change it 3 times. And I want it to go to baseball starts on frame 20. So I'm going to change go to and play. I want it to, anytime I click on the button, it's going to jump to frame 20 and play from there. So I'm going to just test out this button. Didn't even click on it in the baseball, so that means I have to do something, which we'll fix in a second. But it's on the football, it's on another piece of equipment, but anytime I click on this button, now it works. So I'm finding that when I play the movie, it starts, and I don't want that to happen. So on frame 1, on any layer, there's several keyframes here to choose from. I'm going to add my stop action. I also want that stop action to appear at the end of baseball. So baseball starts on 20 and it ends on frame 60. So on frame 60 on the baseball layer, I'm adding another stop action. I need to do the same thing for football, soccer ball, and basketball. But if I play it, it now stops. Nothing's playing until I hit baseball. It plays and it stops and it doesn't move to football. Let's do one more. So, and then you can finish this as your assignment. But here I am on the library. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this button and I'm going to call it foot, obviously for football. And I'll drag it onto the screen. So I want to make sure before I drag it onto the screen, I want to make sure my playhead's on at 1, and then I'm on the buttons layer on frame 1, and then drag this onto the screen. I want to resize it, but I'm winging it with resizing, and I don't like that. I want all the buttons to be the same size. So if I look at baseball, I like the size of that. I need the width and height numbers. So I'm going to go put those in so that they have the same numbers. I'm just copying and pasting. I'm going to go to the height for this one, paste that number in. Now I have two the same button. They're both the same size and everything. But I need this to say football. So I'm going to double click on this to edit it. It takes me to my button properties. And I need it to change it so that the word baseball says football. And sadly, I made a mistake. Baseball doesn't change. So I have to change it on all of these keyframes, or I can hit this edit multiple frames. So it's selecting all of these. I want to say football without the B in the front. I'm just going to check. I think I have to highlight all of these first. I think I'm still going to have to edit it on all these frames. I want it to say football. Okay, so now I have my football button. I'm going to go ahead and start adding in the code and start working with back to my scene. Type in foot. And then go into my code. Copy the code. Replace base with foot. It starts on frame 70. And now my football works, my baseball works, but my football needs a stop at the end. So I'm going to let you add in the stops. I'm going to let you add in the rest of the buttons. I also need to arrange these so they're a little bit more even. They're instead of just randomly placed like this. So that's something I would want to straighten out as well.